Hey everyone, I hope you're tuned in online right now, ready for some Tuesday motivation. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to talk to every single one of you today. I hope that you enjoyed yesterday's session that we had with Simon Sinek, talking about together is better and start with why. I saw all your comments afterwards. It was brilliant to have all of your engagement, all of your thoughts, all of that conversation. And today we're all talking about high performance. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, who I believe is going to give us such a alternative view on sports, on high performance, on health, and such a intriguing point of view that I'm sure you're all going to love. Now, this person is a sports medicine and sports performance specialist. He also has its own social impact education program he's a founder of. And on top of all of that, he also manages to be the director of learning at the New York Knicks, this town's basketball team. So I'm going to introduce you to Erwin Benedict Valencia, also likes to be called E. So that's what we're going to call him today, E. But E, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, sir. Much gratitude for having me around here.
No, we're really grateful to have you here, and I'm just blown away. But how do you, just starting off with, how do you do all of those things? How have you managed in your life? You know, tell me more about your founding of your startups, the work that you're doing, social impact. How are you managing?
I think a lot of it had to do with a vision in my head. I think it's how can you do the most that you can and bring the most impact that you can in the world. And so everything I do, almost as similar to what Simon Sinek was talking about yesterday, is with purpose. I think I begin my day first of all, foremost with gratitude. And when you start with gratitude, everything else kind of follows through appropriately. You're able to set your intentions for the day and then in turn manifest them accordingly in whatever realm that is. It could be in life, it could be in sport, it could be relationships and everything else.
Amazing. Start with gratitude, guys. I'm hoping you're going to be connecting with that. Rojita says, hey, how do I keep my thoughts positive? I mean, in sports, I'm guessing, you know, failure, people, you know, you're working with players, people are overcoming challenges. How do you get people to stay positive when they've just performed badly? How have you stayed positive?
I think that's a very good question. I think because we find ourselves more often than not going with the ebb and flow of, let's say, games. We go into ebb and flow of how the game goes. As it goes high and you're feeling great, then you're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna win. And then you also go down when things aren't going well. So the key is not necessarily be jumping up and down with those thoughts in your head or finding yourself really affected by each one, but finding a happy medium. Yes, we're allowed to, in our emotions, to understand what it's like to be at our highest high and also understand what it's like at our lowest lows. But the key is to find that middle, to find that balance, and whether that is stepping away from the situation and saying, okay, how can I do this by stepping a step back and then looking at the bigger picture? Because in the end, these up and downs, these ebb and flow of the games will come to a result, and that result will then be a bigger result. So we always say, you know, don't get too tormented by the battle that just went on, whether you won or lost. Think about the actual war that's about to go on and the whole thing itself, and then in turn figure out in your head how you want that to come out of. And you keep positive as much as you can, seeing that, as I say, I begin my day with gratitude. And you see...
How do you do that? How do you begin your day with gratitude? So if someone out there is saying, I love that, I really connect with it, how do they start their day with gratitude? What can they do to start their day with gratitude? Is there a specific ritual, a specific written method?
Well, the simple, I know, there's many thoughts. I've been asked that question many times. So how do you begin your day with gratitude? Well, that's the first thing that pops in my head. You know, that is in a sense, my form of meditation. I wake up, you know, I get a nice big stretch. I really feel everything out. Movement obviously is key to living life. And so what I do is I sit down and I say, okay, what am I grateful for today? And I think about it in my head and I say, okay, today, for example, I posted up in my daily gratitude that I have on my Instagram. I'm grateful for the places that have power and peace. Spending time in temples, at the Omega Institute, in ashrams in India. These are things that bring me back to a sense of peace, bring me back to a sense of power. And then, so as I go throughout my day, I begin with that. Going back to that thought process. So once again, we go back to the ebb and flow of the day, the goodness, the badness. But then if you think of that one thing for the day, it allows you then to see a place you come back to. Sort of like when you do meditation, you go back to the breathing, you go back to the awareness of your body. You're more mindful of everything that goes on, but at the same time, you allow to be conscious of how the day goes. Not saying that you're separate from it, but you understand what it feels to be in it and to be out of it as well.
Amazing, guys. There you go. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, you've already woken up today, or maybe some of you are still watching in bed, whichever one it is, make sure you wake up and ask yourself, what can I be grateful for today? Do it before you go to sleep tonight as well. Go to sleep on that thought. Wake up tomorrow feeling that way as well. Have you ever felt down and negative yourself? How do you face this?
Of course. I mean, we are human beings after all, and the emotions that we feel are something we have to embrace. I think as a true human, as part of this universe, we feel how things affect us. We embrace it, we're aware of it, but then you move forward. The problem is sometimes is keeping some of that negativity, keeping some of that angst, that anxiety, that pain inside, and not allowing a process to occur, not accepting it, not moving forward. I think the key is really to say, okay, going back to history, going back to how we felt, once again, what are we grateful for today? You know, there's so many other people in this world that are not as fortunate or lucky as we are right now. So why not live the life we can, because we have the capabilities to, and pay it forward because we do have the capability to pay it forward. I mean, life in the world is so big that we have the ability to make changes in as small as you want to, or as big as you want to as well.
Now, I wanted to ask you a question about high performance. Usually when you think of high performance, you think of it being really tough. You think of a grind. You think of pain and strength and power. High performance makes you think like high performance cars, high performance people. Now, what's your definition of high performance? Does it fit with that definition that we have? Or are there other more subtle parts to it as well? I mean, what are your thoughts on defining high performance?
Well, high performance is a massive conglomerate of stuff. It is defined by the variables in science as distance covered, data that you collect with regards to the jumping abilities, what you can do that's better than other people. But also, I see high performance as something that also begins with the heart. Because without the desire, the passion, the understanding of the journey that you go through, you're unable to get to that next level. Cars that are made, let's say for example, obviously when Ferrari was built, it began with a passion. They created high performance cars because they wanted a machine that would define what it is to be the heart and soul of Italy, so to speak. Same thing with Porsche and Mercedes, when they created these vehicles, which inherently were just things or tools for people to move from A to B, but the passion and the dedication and the heart inside of them created how we could manifest that. And it's the same way with athletes. I think the highest level athletes are those that take into account their raw skills, harness that, and push each variable they have for themselves to maximize it and to reach their highest level physically, but also reach their highest level emotionally, spiritually, and obviously with heart and with passion.
Awesome. Vin's got a great question here. It says, I'm a physical medicine and rehab physician, right? And he says that in training, he finds it a bit difficult to get people to follow a meditation or mindfulness regime. In this time of evidence-based medicine, how do you do it? So that's something you incorporate in your work.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you faced struggles in incorporating it into sports and athletics, and how have you managed to do it?
No, that's an absolutely great question. This is, once again, I think the perfect scenario for this, where we're transitioning the understanding of athletics, sports, and medicine, and the understanding of the personal growth world, and the mindfulness world, and the meditation world. I'm very lucky to have, in essence, a mentor next to me by my side in an organization that believes so. You know, Phil Jackson is a legend in his own time, and he's a legend currently in this time because he's one of the few people in the world to blend both sports and mindfulness and meditation. I follow that regime by making it as part of a performance platform. I think the problems in previous, I guess, regimes, whether it's ours or other teams or other sport, is that they separate that. They separate the science, they separate the high performance value of what they think it is, and say, oh, meditation, yoga, all that stuff is alternative. It's that thing on the side that we do to make things better when things aren't going well. It's something we have a chat about because we feel like, oh, we need this so that we can get over the hump. But in actuality, as with practice, as with anything, the brain is a muscle. I mean, that's proven in neuroscience, that if you work the muscle, which is your brain, you allow for things like meditation to be part of your program. It then in turn makes every other part of your body work more efficiently.
How have you seen meditation enhance people's regimes? So if you see someone who is a high-performing athlete, they're already doing well. What does adding mindfulness or meditation make a difference to their performance when they're playing or when they're thinking or whatever it is?
It allows them to have a sense of being in self. Yes, you can get them sports psychologists that get them focused and like, okay, this is the target, this is the goal, this is the putt, this is the shot, this is the kick, this is it. But then it's about being able to have the chance to take a step back, see the bigger picture, and say, okay, what are we facing, and how do I get back to the place of peace? So that as I do this move, kick, shot, throw, whatever, that you're accepting for every outcome that could be. So you're not fixed on the actual outcome, but the actual action itself. So if you pitch the ball and it's perfect, then awesome. But if you just veered off left or right, or if you kicked the ball, it didn't go into the uprights, or it didn't go to the top corner you wanted, then you're good with it, because you're just being. You're saying, okay, by allowing meditation to occur, you're allowing yourself to shoot that ball, hit it, and say, whatever happens is out of my control.
Amazing. Wow. So I'm sure many of us, whether we're sports people or whether we're not, we can apply those principles in our daily life. I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as I am. I'm really interested in how sports applies to our lives, because I truly believe that what it takes to become a high-performing athlete has so much to do with developing a high-performing attitude in the way that we function. So if you had to create a daily schedule for people watching today that would help them operate at a high level in whatever they do, what does that daily schedule for them look like? How does that compare to an athlete's daily schedule, and how can they replicate that in their own life?
Yeah, I think one of the simple things to do is, like I said, I'll always go back to gratitude. I think that sets you up pretty fairly well at the beginning of your day. You wake up, you get a little bit of a stretch, you give gratitude to anything you want to give gratitude to. Sometimes I give 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I couple it as well with a little bit of meditation that adds goals. Personal goals, and what are my 3 professional goals for the day? What can I fulfill in a day that are measurable, because I'm still scientific, and have outcomes that I can know will make a benefit or impact for not just myself, but the greater good of humanity in a sense. And then after that, I come out, I do a little bit of yoga, some breathing exercises, and movement. And that movement is key. I'm a big active meditator, you know. I like to put music on and then really engulf what that music makes me feel like. And I do a little bit of a dance and stuff. And then, you know, as you go in the shower, you go about your day. The key, really, one of the simple things is smiling. Smiling your day and living life like tomorrow will never happen. So why be a sourpuss and feel bad about things when, you know, you can live a life of happiness? And even though some people may find it kind of weird, especially in bigger cities where everyone's like clumped up in this way, sometimes all you have to do is take it all in. And then even if by taking it all in, it allows you then to just let it all out in a positive manner and then be happy. And so as you go through that, I think anytime you feel that you're up, is not to find yourself jumping all the way up. And if you feel you're down, not jumping all the way down, try to stay as middle as possible. I think some of the top happy people, the Buddhist monks that are out there, have that great ability to be perfectly right in the middle.
Amazing. Let's go and see some ideas. Ahmed, I am from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I always try to meditate, but do find it rather difficult. Could you please instruct me on how to be focused on it? Any tips for meditation?
That's a great question. I've been learning recently the next level of meditation, particularly for the modern man. I've found that in today's world, with all the input we have, we can't just tell somebody or tell ourselves, okay, we're gonna go in the corner and sit down. There's so much going on. And even being guided with like breath and stuff, you sit down and then you're telling yourself, okay, am I breathing deeply? Am I breathing shallow? Can I move? Am I not allowed to move? And I say still, oh, my back's starting to hurt a little bit. Oh, my hips are getting a little tight. There's so much going on that you find yourself like really so cluttered. Then you lose the benefit of what meditation, or your goal for meditation, for what that is at that day. So one of the magic, easy things I've actually found is to exhaust yourself with some sort of movement, whether that's dancing, whether that's doing skip rope, calisthenics, whatever you want, even like shooting hoops or moving around. The key is again to get yourself into a moment where you're actually sweating and you're panting, because by the moment you kind of ring a bell and say, okay, now I'm going to sit down, all you're doing is breathing as a reflex. you're not thinking about your breath. You're not focusing of how deep. You're just breathing, or else you'll die. I mean, really, you're like, okay, you're breathing, and then as you calm down, your focus mainly goes to not just the breath, but the fact of what else you can think about and focus on. So the breath just comes in and out naturally without having you to like concentrate the depth, the movement, whatever. It's just being. It's just being, and you allow yourself being. Another hint that you could do too is maybe add some non-lyrical music. Music that just goes in and out, something like with a sitar or something that just gets you back in the zone. So if you feel like you're getting lost, it allows you to come back a little bit too. So adding different elements. The modern man, the modern human being today can't just stay still. You have to integrate things that they do on a daily basis.
Amazing. This is what I love about these conversations. We're talking about sports, medicine, mindfulness, yoga, dancing as well, and music, all in the same conversation. And this is what we need for the future, connected thinking, where we're able to infuse and look at similarities and find correlations between things that people would have seen as separate before. We're now noticing that actually a mesh and actually a collaboration of all of these great techniques and wisdom leads to higher performance for every single one of us. So I hope that you're enjoying this conversation. If you're speaking to someone, you want to connect with someone, but they're feeling negative, they're always like that, how do we help them become grateful? So you're saying gratitude's important.
Yeah.
How do we help other people to recognize that?
I think one of the things that each person, as they go along in their journey, is to recognize the path that they've gone through. When I finally got an opportunity to get into the NBA, I did it, and I accepted the possibilities of being there, not for myself, but because I was doing it for millions of Filipinos out there that would otherwise just dream of having an opportunity or being known about an opportunity to be in the NBA. So I've started that path since I was 18, and I visualized it in my head of what direction I wanted to take. But then I truly understood the path that it took me to get there. The ups, the downs, the negativity, as you said, and then allowed what I liked and what was good for me and for the greater good to manifest. Allow it to manifest. So if you are somebody that is confronted by somebody who has a negative attitude with stuff, maybe the key is to understand who they are and what really is causing this negative attitude. Don't just say, oh, you're a negative person, but because you're actually, what you're doing, you're increasing their thought process of that negativity inside them. It's to take a step back, observe, be a watcher, be a witness to what they do, how they go over the day, and maybe come up and say, hey, what's really going on? And more often than not, you'll find out there's a little thing that's inside that they don't really want to tell you until they finally trust you. And when they finally trust you, you'll understand that. And then you say, hey, there's other people that would love to be where you are right now. And if you don't like it, find out what it is that you don't like about it. Because we all have a reason for being where we are. And maybe perhaps the purpose you're doing this, or maybe this job that maybe you don't like, you're doing this because you're doing this maybe for your kid, or maybe for your parents, your mom, or something like that. And think about that and say, look, you should be very happy for that. Because you're changing somebody's lives. You're saving somebody's life in what you're doing by merely doing what you're doing. So you don't have to feel bad about that. You don't have to feel negative about that.
Yeah.
Find the positive in it. And if you don't feel like you need to be positive right now, I challenge you to just smile for about 10 minutes. And then they'll be like, okay, that's weird, but you're smiling though, right?
Yeah.
So, and it allows them to kind of just think of the process. It takes less muscles to smile than it is to frown.
Yeah.
Just start with smiling. It changes your attitude right away.
Amazing. And it's really important to recognize that all of us may be doing things we don't love, that aren't our passion, that aren't our purpose, but noticing that our sacrifice is actually benefiting someone else positively is a beautiful place to start. Just recognizing that actually the sacrifices you're all making, the struggle you're going through, is providing something for someone else that you love. And that's a great place to find confidence from. It's a great place to be. He actually touched on something there. He talked about being in the NBA. Believe it or not, he's actually the first Filipino to ever work in the NBA and Major League Baseball. That's true, right?
Yes.
And I mean, did you ever feel that was going to happen when you were young? Is that something that you set out to do? How did you figure out that this was going to be part of your purpose, or this role was going to be part of what you do? How can other people think about that too?
Well, the key is knowing. When I was younger, it's funny, in the Philippines, basketball is the biggest game. Every Filipino that's out there watching right now is probably thinking, wow, yes, basketball is massive in the Philippines. It's like football back in England. It's truly is a massive thing. even thinking about the fact that the history of basketball in the Philippines, professional basketball in the league in the Philippines is only second to the NBA with regards to the history and the length of time it's been present. And in every corner of the Philippines, in the slums, in the small provinces, there's basketball courts everywhere. And kids playing with no slippers, with slippers, and challenging each other in games that they're short. It's like not a game for Filipinos inherently, but I set a dream and a goal that said one day I'm going to find myself in the NBA. If none, I've never seen a trailblazer pass that mark. Everyone looks at the players, everyone looks at the athletes, but what if you're not an athlete? Well, what if you're not somebody that has that gift? I knew at a certain period of time, I said, you know what, I'm probably going to make an NBA with my frame. Yes, I'm tall. Yes, I'm active. But now, especially that I'm in the NBA, I see the difference. The difference in these guys that play, or even the women of the WNBA, they have a certain thing about them. This is the reason why they're there. They have a gift, and physically, and maybe mentally and emotionally as well. And I said, how can I still get there? So, oddly enough, this journey began when I was about 12 years old. I found myself attending the Silva Method, and the Silva Method was the beginning of my understanding of meditation in a Western perspective, so to speak. And you know, I didn't even have money to go to the Silva Method initially in the one summertime, so I had to save. I had to wait. I was like 12, so I had to wait till Christmas time came to ask my grandparents and my parents, like, kind of money. I'm going to use it for something next summer. And they're like, what are you going to use it for? Well, I saw this ad in a newspaper. It said I can increase my brain power and have better grades. My parents were like, yeah, okay, better grades. We'll go for that. You know, very typical Filipino parents, like, yeah, we'll go for that. But I'm not sure we're going to pay for it, but let's make it your experiment. Okay, fine. So I waited till next summer. I took that. And the most marvelous thing about being young and being the Silva Method is being able to understand what it's like to create visual boards in your head, to understand the path, even going into a meditative state, and bending spoons. When you're young, you know, you would never think you could do it, but when you have nothing cluttering your head, you'll be surprised what you can do. And then as I got older and learning more about myself and being more about what I can do for the bigger genre, the bigger public, particularly in the Philippines, I said, well, I can't be an athlete, so maybe I can be the superstar behind the superstar. Maybe I can find a way to still be in the NBA and find myself really making a change in that world, and then in turn being an inspiration to other Filipinos that know that if they can't make it as a player, maybe they can make it as something else. I mean, being in professional sports doesn't mean that you just have to be an athlete. You can also be the people that make the athletes great.
Amazing. I love that. Finding our place, right? Knowing that why not be the superstar behind the superstar, from self-awareness, really understanding what each of us uniquely possesses, what we uniquely have as our special talent, our special gift. Just as the players out there have their gift, you have your own as well. And just finding that, embracing that is so, so important. Remember, this is all about building a global conscious community. That's what we're trying to do here. Create a community where all of you are connecting with each other to improve each other's lives, your lives, and the lives of people beyond this as well. I've got a great question from Shiv here. He says, athletes have to perceive an end to their love or passion in the sense of playing. So what is your take on being the best you can, knowing that you cannot sustain that forever?
Well, I think the key with that is once again awareness. Is knowing where possibly your limitations are, and not necessarily saying that you're self-limiting yourself to be the best and to set the goals accordingly, but by taking a step back and almost in a scientific way, looking at yourself and how you rank among others. Yes, that you can tell yourself and motivate yourself and say, yeah, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to beat Usain Bolt with the 100-meter dash. I'm going to be better than Cristiano Ronaldo or something like that. But you have to really be aware. Self-awareness is the key. It says, okay, where can you be and how can you rank? And if you create a goal, let's say, okay, I just want to be able to play for 5 years and still be able to have knees to play with my kids. You know, that's a goal. That's a phenomenal goal. Or you say, okay, for baseball players, for example, it's like, I just want to be able to go enough where I can get my 10 years in Major League Baseball, get a pension, and then have my family be safe and be secured. I mean, those are phenomenal goals that don't have to be so far-fetched that then you set yourself up for failure. I think the key is knowing what the achievables are, and then go with the short terms to be able to achieve that, and then in the end, still have like long-term goals, but you can still adjust accordingly.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask E a few quick questions now, a few quick fire questions that I want him to answer. One's a bit on the spot. I want you to tell us in very quick sentences, what is the best advice you've ever had?
If nothing else, that's my own advice.
No, the best advice you've ever had.
The best I've ever been given. There's only two things in this world that we can control. It's attitude and effort. Coach Hurdle from the Pittsburgh Pirates, when I was working with him, told me that, and I said, that's interesting. Attitude and effort, the only two things you control. Everything else is left to the universe.
Amazing.
So, and after that, that's kind of how you live, and you're just like, all right, I have a great attitude, I smile, and I just put all the effort I can, and if it doesn't go the way I want to, so
that's the only two things you can control.
Exactly.
I love that, right? Attitude and effort, the two things you can control. Put your energy into those. Don't let your energy be consumed by everything that you can't control.
Absolutely.
Right? Brilliant. The worst advice you've ever received?
Study and don't sleep.
Definitely.
Because you'll get better grades if you don't sleep and study like crazy. Research has definitely shown that that's not the right way to do things.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. The best advice you've ever given?
If nothing else, be an inspiration to others.
Okay, awesome. And worst advice you've ever given?
I don't know. I don't really give bad advice, so that's an interesting one. I guess run as much as you can so you get used to it. I
find the worst advice question so interesting because I often think about giving advice.
Yeah.
And I always say that it's almost like your advice is only as mature as you are. And then I look at some advice I gave 5 years ago and I always think, I would change that now slightly, I'll tweak it now slightly. Not that it was bad advice. It was never wrong in principle. But don't we just learn more about ourselves as we go along, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think where it is too is it makes us more conscious of some of the decisions we've made in the past. I think that's part of just growing up.
Yeah.
And back then I was like a hardy clinician. I was really like all about just the clinical stuff, and perhaps some of the worst advice I gave was just about a clinical aspect where I said you need to do this, and this, as opposed to feeling how that feels. It's like, well, it doesn't really feel good. It's like, well, according to the textbook, this should work, and then you let the person continue to do it, and then you're like, oh, I don't think that was the right thing. And now, as I've gotten older and be more aware of things, I'm a little bit more conscious of how they feel. And then I want them to translate it to me and say, so how does that exercise feel? Or how does this treatment feel? Do you know what I'm doing to you? And then they're like, yeah, I'm feeling that. Well, I'm not sure that feels too good. Okay, then we'll take a step back. Let's only go to the parts where it feels like it's making a good difference in your life.
Yeah, definitely true. There's a lot of questions about this now, and I'm really intrigued to ask you this question. Catherine's saying, and I've seen a few people ask this, how do you find your gift? I've explored so many avenues and have not planted my foot yet. So how do you find your gift? Or how did you find it, and how can other people find it?
I think it's taking a step back and seeing what has made a change almost immediately in different people's lives. I knew from an early age that I had a passion to be a healer. I had a passion to be some sort of a coach and mentor, and I had a passion to be a servant leader. And I think for me, it just felt that, like going back to the days when I was in my little classroom when I was 14 and I had to be a mediator between two friends that were having an argument. And for some strange reason, everyone says, hey, Erwin, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, why are you guys asking me? I don't know, you seem like you're Switzerland. You're that dude that's like fine, good with everything. So your life is pretty good. So we want to ask you what your thoughts were. And I'm like, well, okay. But then also I was the guy that when somebody wanted advice, and whether it's somebody younger, even my little brother who now has become successful like crazy, is, I just found myself showing him as I've experienced things in life. I said, hey, do you think this fits for you? I said, and as I had a time I spent at Stanford, and I brought my little brother in there, who eventually ended up going to Stanford. But he says one of his fondest memories was me taking him on a tour of campus and seeing how many things developed at this university. Great minds were developed, and all these technologies that we're using now, they came to this one university. And he said, wow, if I got an opportunity to go to school here, it'd probably change my life. And so that, I didn't even recognize that. So maybe some of the gifts that you have, and even if you can't point that out, is something you already have. You just need to take a step back. I mean, being a servant leader, this is my intention for this year coming in, and was magnified by understanding what that truly means in the world of sport, and spending time with the All Blacks really made me understand where that came from.
Yeah, tell us a bit about you were just out there with the All Blacks very recently.
I was with the All Blacks 2 weeks ago. I watched the game versus Australia. For the Aussie Wallaby fans out there, sorry, 29-9, I was there. The funny thing about the All Blacks is that in as much as they're the most dominant sports team in the world, they have a 78.4% winning in 100 years, like, of sport. That's pretty significant.
And what does that take?
And I understand. I realized that it took culture. It's no individual is bigger than the team, and no team is bigger than the game of rugby itself. And the only way you can be an All Black is you have to be a good person. So because better people make better All Blacks. So you can see that it's ingrained in the culture that honor, pride, and heart come before money, success, because that'll all come, and it does for them. And that's why people are just used to having them win, and they just dominate, and they're actually scary, and they do the haka and everything, and everyone's like, I don't know what we do with this. They're doing the haka. Do we dance? What do we do? And they just dominate things. And it's not about even giving fear. It's making them understand that they're ready and they're prepared. And that culture really made me understand, particularly how the team captains really sweep the sheds and clean the lockers out. I mean, that's such a significant. I mean, how many truly sports people in this world will be the first one to clean a locker room, especially at the highest level? I don't know. I'll be honest right now. So being there made me really engulf and embrace my ability to how I can do that for the people that I mentor, for the country of the Philippines, and in sport in general.
I absolutely love that. So much of our success is based on culture, which is such a refreshing point to hear, isn't it? I mean, it's so much often drawn down to how much work you put in, all that kind of stuff, but we're looking at the All Blacks and we're saying, actually, culture is such a uniting force, such a force of strength and empowerment. Can you discuss real people and moving past physical pain, right? So how do you move across physical pain? People are going through real physical challenges.
Well, some of the literature that's out there now is showing that physical pain is a manifestation of a lot of things that are coming up there. The brain-body connection is being shown more and more in literature to be actually something that's real. So one of the biggest eye-opening studies that have changed my life was something that was done at the University of Northwestern University in Chicago by a neuroscientist named neurosurgeon, Dr. Abkarian, who looked at chronic pain and looked at back pain, particularly chronic pain, and see the physical changes that occur in the prefrontal lobe, the prethalamic pathways of the brain. And they saw that as you go from 3 weeks to then 3 months and then 3 years, that chronicity actually increases, and it creates a permanent change in the brain. Because once I said before, the brain is a muscle. So if you feel like there's fear that occurs, the fear of avoidance, the limitation that you set on yourself, now that actually creeps back into your brain, and it actually creates the physical changes. So one of the things that you have to do to go past it is, first and foremost, accept it. Know what you're going through, and know what the root cause of what you're going through. Because you may have some physical issues that are going on, but really there's something bigger behind that you don't even know what it is. And it takes some self-processing more than anything else, self-analysis. And then get past it, start moving. Especially with chronic pain people, they're like, I don't want to move it because it hurts. Move it. Movement is the key to life. And your brain, your muscles, your fascia all need movement for things to function appropriately. So don't stop from moving. Move it. Even though ever so slightly, you'll see the difference from day one to day whatever that allows you the difference immediately. Just by purely telling yourself to move. And your brain will love you for it.
Okay,
and your heart too. So
amazing. Emily, I hope that answers your question. Follow it up with another if we haven't quite got it, but I'm glad that we've been able to answer that too. She says CrossFit helps as well. She's saying that she's doing
any activity that allows you for movements. There's been research that has shown that as simple as going for a swim, it is almost as effective as doing a back program. Once again, it goes back to plain and simply moving.
Yeah, awesome. Emily, I'm glad you liked your answer. Thank you for writing that back to us as well. And I'm going to take one more question. I'm going to ask E over here. The question I'm going to asking is Kobe, Jordan, LeBron.
You can't do that to me.
And you can throw in someone else as well if you want. But what's the order?
Wow, that's a tough one. That's a different. Each one of them are different. I think each one of them have different gifts. Jordan was a trendsetter in his time. It wasn't just the gift that he gave in the sport of basketball as as an athlete, but also as a marketer. I mean, he pretty much invented swag. He created J's. I mean, still live till today.
Yeah.
He had, he wore those shorts, he had that tongue, he had an attitude about him. And I think that was one of his biggest contributions to the game itself, not just basketball, but sport. Kobe was revolutionary. He was a guy who spoke many languages, who was worldly, who had muses, who had Jordan as a muse, but then did not get himself like stuck being defined as just the next Jordan. He said, no, I'm Kobe, and this is what I do. This is what I do differently. Yes, my game may be similar to Jordan's, but I'm different. And then you had LeBron, who is just a man-child. I mean, LeBron is just a beast in himself, where his efficiency rating is phenomenal because he's like a football player that plays basketball. You can't stop him. So they're all very different in the way they do things. I would go more like the people that took care of them or mentor them, Phil Jackson. I mean, I'm a bigger fan of the guy who was the overall kind of coach. I mean, even though LeBron wasn't part of Phil Jackson's realm, he was part of Coach K's realm in Duke. Coach K had a different approach about him, that whether you're Kobe or LeBron, you follow Coach K. Something about Coach K and his aura, just like Phil's. I'm really more into the teachers, the coaches, if you must, who lay the foundation for these guys to be even greater than they are.
There we go, guys. It's all about individuality, uniqueness. They all have their individual traits, and also it's about having great mentors in our life. We all need people that can teach us, drive us, notice where we need to grow, notice what we need, and they all have insight that we don't have ourselves. So mentors, coaches in our lives are so significant. So E, I'm going to ask you to leave any last messages with our audience today, anything that you want to leave them with. We've answered some fantastic questions today. Keep the likes and the love coming. Share this video as well. Remember, it exists forever on Facebook after this as well, so you can share it, tag your friends in, and of course we're going to be live again tomorrow. But E, are there any last things you'd like to say before we leave the audience?
Yeah, there's a three-step simple process that I always tell people that allows them to live a life beyond mediocre. One, visualize what you want. Know in your head, you can smell it, taste it, whether that's standing in Madison Square Garden, whether it's cooking the best meal in your life. Visualize what that is. And then next, prepare for the path that takes you there. Study. Go to universities, get your certifications, learn from the best gurus, travel and visit the best people that do what you want to do, and learn from them and take it all in. And third, allow it to manifest. A lot of us push too much because we want it so bad. Sometimes all it takes is for us to take a step back and allow the universe to say, you know what, it's your time. So those three things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been great having you here. And guys, I hope you're going to tune in again live tomorrow. If you haven't already, give a like to the HuffPost Rise Facebook page so you get a notification every time we're live. You can find me on Facebook as well. I'm at Shetty IW. Come and follow me there. Come and tune in. Let's join this conversation, expand this conversation, all about positivity, motivation, and having fulfilling, purposeful lives. I can only wish the best for you. Can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Thank you for this opportunity, for letting me serve you. Thank you to E for being here as well.
Much gratitude.
And lots of
Always
gratitude.
beginning gratitude.
And thank you to all of you for being here and all your questions. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. See you soon.